Hey, I put this one together, and honestly, I think it'll hit you harder than you expect. No fluff, no filler, just watch it through. If this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe. One tap, and you'll never miss a story. I walked up to that grill already bracing for impact. My shirt stuck to my back from the Georgia humidity, and I hadn't even made it to the cooler before Mom threw the first hit. "There's my Bryn," she called, arms wide like royalty just stepped out of a Lexus. Bryn waltzed in late, hair perfect, fake laugh already running. Behind her came Dane, big, loud, looking around like someone was about to hand him a mic. I didn't get a hug, I got a nod. "Tobin works around hospitals," Mom said when one of the neighbors asked. That was it, 5 words, like I was the janitor who parked wrong. "My name's Tobin Patterson. I'm 58 now, living in Denver, but back then I was 34 and still dumb enough to think showing up counted for something. I had a good job, I paid my bills. I thought being the stable one would mean they saw me. Instead, it meant I was just available." Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. Bryn jumped into her newest pitch while the burgers sizzled. "We're rebranding the wellness studio. New scent lines, guided breathwork, and a subscription course on reclaiming your divine rhythm." Dane added, "It's gonna blow up. Real momentum this time." I cracked a beer and said nothing. The last 2 times it blew up, my parents bailed her out behind closed doors. But she was the star, so the details didn't matter. Mom launched into her routine. She's so driven, always building. That's what I love about her. She turned to me finally. "And Tobin's still in Atlanta doing, what is it again? Something with billing?" "I run the revenue cycle for a major clinic network," I said, calm, precise. She laughed like I'd made a joke. Yes, that's what I meant." Dad stood by the smoker, pretending not to hear. That was his specialty. Soft-spoken and invisible when it counted. He used to be proud of me, I think, until Mom taught him how to ignore anything that didn't make her look good. Bryn didn't even look up from her phone. That was the last normal family gathering before everything cracked open. I didn't know it yet, but the second I signed that hospital form, all the years of swallowing it down were going to come roaring back, and this time they weren't walking away clean. I stepped back from the patio and lit a cigarette I'd sworn I was quitting. Bryn was holding court. Mom was bragging about her like she'd raised a saint, and my dad hadn't said my name once. I blew smoke into the air and headed toward the back fence. I needed space. 2 weeks later, the call came while I was at my desk. "Your father collapsed," Mom said. "They've got him at the hospital in Atlanta. They're saying it's his heart." I was on the road before she finished the second sentence. By the time I parked and pushed through the entrance, I could already hear her voice echoing off tile. I stepped into the hallway with the phone still in my hand and the fluorescent light doing nothing for the pounding in my head. My dad was dying behind glass, my mother was unraveling, and my sister was already auditioning for sympathy. I went straight to logistics mode. Called my admin back in Atlanta, told her I'd be offline and to hold any non-urgent calls. Then I reached out to 2 people I knew at the hospital, one in admissions, one in cardiology support. Got confirmation on the file. Gordon Patterson, male, late 60s, multiple blockages, unstable vitals. Priority case. Needed clearance to proceed. Inside, it was chaos in slow motion. Mom had sunk into one of those stiff lobby chairs, hands clenched tight over her purse like she could will it into being useful. Bryn was curled up next to Dane, dabbing at her eyes, and Dane had this look like he was ready to throw hands at the vending machine if it didn't give him what he wanted. Then came the tap on my arm. "You're Mr. Patterson's son?" the woman asked. She wore scrubs under a blazer and held a stack of forms like a shield. "Kara Sloan, Financial Coordination." I nodded and followed her to the side alcove. No windows, just a wall of beige and a single computer. She laid it out with that rehearsed calm they all use when saying something ugly. Your father's insurance covers about 60%, assuming no complications. We're estimating the rest to total around $167,000. She paused, just long enough for the number to sink in, then kept going. To proceed with surgical scheduling, we need $68,000 paid or guaranteed. We'll also need a responsible party on file. I didn't flinch. I'd seen these forms 100 times for strangers, but it felt different when it was my name, my signature, my account. I'll sign, I said. Kara gave a small nod and slid the forms toward me. This is just for your father's case. Billing is separate from general household coverage. Do you want to list multiple payment options or one card on file, only for this? I wrote down my info, signed with the same pen I used to approve system budgets, and handed it back without hesitating. Back in the lobby, the temperature had shifted. Mom was whispering fast and frantic about IRAs and if we can move the annuity, and Bryn kept throwing in these empty buzzwords like, we just need liquidity, and it's a short-term crisis. Dane muttered, we'll figure it out, like volume could fill in for a missing dollar. Then all their eyes landed on me. Tobin, Mom said, her tone just a hair shy of command. Can you do something? I didn't look at her. I looked past her, through the glass, at my dad's still chest and the machines keeping time for him. I'll handle it, I said, voice flat. Then I turned and walked back down that hallway, faster this time, before any of them could claim they'd helped me decide. I hit the far end of the hallway and leaned against the wall hard enough to feel the chill come through my back. I didn't pause to breathe. I pulled out my phone and called the bank. High priority wire, I said. Medical. I need it moving in the next 10 minutes or I'll lose the slot. The rep tried to give me the standard timeline. I cut her off. Expedite it. I'll cover the fee. Once that was moving, I called the hospital payment office, gave them the patient ID, confirmed the coordinator, and told them to expect a full wire. The woman on the line tried to slow walk me through disclosures. I stopped her. I work in this space. Just flag it, confirm routing, and get the authorization clean. I heard typing, some polite silence, then, confirmed. We'll notify surgical intake as soon as funds clear. I hung up and closed my eyes for a second. Not to rest, just to make the spinning stop. Kara met me halfway back to the lobby. She already had the wire notification on her screen. That was fast, she said. Had to be, I told her. There's no prize for slow emergencies. She gave me this look like she recognized the type. Not the rich guy bailing out a mess, the one who always shows up, even when it's ugly. You'd be surprised how often this part goes badly, she said. Families stall, disappear, people argue until the window closes. I signed the routing confirmation and slipped my ID back in my wallet. Not this time. My hands were steady the whole time, but I felt like I had concrete in my chest. I didn't feel noble. I felt cornered. I walked back into the waiting room, and they looked up like I was returning from a supply run. It's covered, I said. Mom blinked like she hadn't expected it to actually happen. Then came that familiar shift, 1 second of shock, half a second of what might have been gratitude, and then the slide into assumed relief. She nodded once, like I'd done my chore. Bryn barely looked at me. Her face tightened like she was calculating something. Dane gave me a nod so stiff it looked painful. Nobody said thank you. Surgery started within the hour. A nurse came out with updates every so often, and Mom kept praying loud enough for people nearby to hear. Bryn took phone calls near the window like she was running comms for a celebrity recovery. Dane paced. Again. I stayed in my chair and didn't move unless I had to. The hallway lights buzzed. My brain kept looping back to that old memory of Dad hunched over the workbench with me, showing me how to strip a wire clean without breaking it. How he used to smile without waiting for Mom's cue. Then the double doors swung open, and the surgical lead stepped out. Stable, responsive, still critical, but he pulled through. Mom folded. Full sobs, hands to her face, shoulders shaking. Bryn rushed to her and immediately pulled out her phone mid-hug. I watched her angle it slightly, thumb tapping, probably posting. Over the next 2 weeks, I drove back and forth from Atlanta during off hours. I brought soup. I fixed the TV remote. I listened when Dad managed to whisper through the rasp. He never said thank you, but he gripped my hand once, hard. One evening, Aunt Janelle cornered me near the vending machines. Her eyes locked on mine. "Did you pay for all this?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, every dollar." She looked down, then back up, eyes sad. I figured. You always do. The living room smelled like rented flowers and warmed over hors d'oeuvres. I stood by the back window with a plastic cup of soda, watching a cousin's kid chase a balloon across the tile while Bryn held court in the center of it all. She wore white, like some twisted bride of survival, and had that same too-wide smile she used for selling dreams. Mom hovered near her, acting like a proud campaign manager. Nobody looked my way unless they were stepping past me to get to the buffet. Aunt Janelle passed with a plate and made eye contact, gave me a slow nod, nothing dramatic. Her face said it all. I see this too. It was already bad, but it got worse when my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen and froze. It was a Facebook notification. Dad had posted. The photo showed him weak in bed, tube still in his arms. Bryn leaned in close, all dimples and glow. Dane stood over them like security. The caption read, "So grateful I'm still here. My daughter Bryn saved my life. Handled everything when I couldn't." It hit like someone knocked the air out of me. Not one clean blow, more like something pressing in the same place until everything went numb. The post already had over 200 likes, nearly 100 comments. Half the family tree chimed in about how incredible Bryn was. "Proud of the Patterson women. What a daughter. That's what family looks like." Bryn replied with 3 hearts and, "Love you, Daddy." She didn't fix it. She didn't mention me. Dane even dropped in a comment. "Bryn's a hero under pressure." I didn't comment. Didn't hit like. Didn't even breathe for a second. That same week, a group text came through. From Bryn. "Dad's recovery celebration this Saturday. Be there. 3:30. Don't be late." No please. No question. Just a command like she'd planned the whole timeline herself. I almost skipped it. I sat with the idea, stared it down. But then I remembered how gray Dad looked through the ICU glass and figured I could survive one afternoon. For him. Not for them. The place was already full when I walked in, a sea of pastel clothes and cocktail chatter. A banner across the back wall read, "Welcome back, Gordon," and I could already feel the photo ops happening in the corners. Mom saw me and gave a wave like I was a former coworker. "There's Tobin," she said to someone nearby. "He came in from Atlanta." Not my son, just logistics. I drifted to the edge of the yard. Nobody noticed. Nobody asked questions. It was like I was watching a movie where someone else got cast in my role. Dad sat in a lounge chair surrounded by people. He looked thin, tired, but happy. Every time his eyes found Bryn, he smiled like she personally held off death. When he looked my way, there was a pause. Recognition, but not clarity. Bryn handed him a drink and tucked a blanket over his legs. People cooed, cameras clicked. I stood there holding my soda and thought, I can live with being overlooked, but being replaced, right in front of me, that's a different kind of death. Janelle came up next to me and whispered, "Don't let them write you out." Then she slipped back into the crowd, and the applause started as Mom clinked her glass. Mom raised her wine glass like she was about to crown someone queen. The backyard went quiet. Phones lifted. I counted over 40 people packed into that house and yard, half of them cousins I hadn't seen in years, all of them turning to face Marlo like she was officiating something sacred. "Everyone," she said, her voice sweetened for show. "Thank you for being here to celebrate Gordon's recovery and this beautiful reminder of what family is all about." A few people clapped early. She held up a hand to stop them. I want to say this loud and clear, because not every family has what we have. In our hardest moment, when everything was on the line, this family pulled together. And one person, in particular, carried more than her share. She turned to Bryn, who gave the crowd a bashful look and pressed one hand to her chest like she'd just been knighted. This woman, Mom said, pausing for effect, took charge. She coordinated everything at the hospital, made sure her father got what he needed, and did it without complaint. Bryn blinked fast, misting up on cue. Dane stepped in closer behind her, arms folded, chin high. She made sure, Mom continued, that the bills didn't bury us, that we didn't lose our home trying to save Gordon's life. Murmurs of admiration rolled through the crowd. I saw heads nod. I saw one of my aunts mouth the words, "That's real love." Bryn sniffled, then laughed softly. I just did what anyone would do. I couldn't let Dad down. Don't be modest, Mom said. We all saw you. You led with grace. Dad pushed himself to his feet, took the mic, or in this case, the center of attention, and cleared his throat. I can't say enough about Bryn, he said, voice hoarse but clear. She's the pride of this family. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. Applause broke out, real, loud, sustained. I didn't move. I didn't clap. I couldn't. My hands were too busy trying not to shake. Then, finally, like a last-minute addition on a grocery list, Mom said, "And Tobin's here too. He helped a little." The words landed like a drop of spit. She wasn't done. Whatever Tobin contributed, she added with a sharp smile, came from that dead-end job of his anyway. But every little bit counts, right? Laughter. Shallow and polite, but enough of it. I heard someone near the cooler say, "That's Marla," like it was a party trick. I didn't blink, didn't flinch, but my ears burned and my fists curled at my sides. I caught Bryn trying to hide a smirk behind her glass. Mom leaned in to a guest and said louder than necessary, "I never know what he actually does. Something with papers, not the ambitious one." That was the one that cracked something in me. I'd spent 20 years building a stable career, managing 8-figure systems, and they still didn't know the name of my job. But I didn't speak, because I knew the game. If I lashed out, they'd say I was unstable. Brent had been laying that groundwork for years. Tobin gets moody. He's sensitive. He holds grudges. The door opened, and in walked Dr. Evander Cross. Charcoal suit, tie still tight, face unreadable. One of the best cardiac surgeons in Atlanta. One of the few people in the medical world who actually respected what I did. Mom's eyes lit up like slot machines hitting 777s. She rushed toward him. "Doctor," she said, grabbing his hand. "So honored. Bryn told us you might stop by." Bryn floated in behind her, smiling like she'd written his invitation herself. Evander didn't say anything at first. He scanned the room, clocked the banner, the posturing, the smug faces. His eyes found mine. I gave him a look, subtle but clear. "Please don't blow this up right now." He gave the smallest nod. Then he looked back at Mom, and you could see it start. His face changed. Something in him shifted. And just like that, the air in the room went still. Evander stepped forward like he'd been invited to say grace, voice calm and deliberate. "Glad to see you up and healing, Gordon. I heard the paperwork got cleared fast. Surprisingly fast, actually." Mom's eyes lit up again, and she turned with a proud wave toward Bryn. "Yes, Bryn handled all of that," she said, like she was reciting a script she'd rehearsed in front of a mirror. She made sure everything was taken care of. Bryn gave the room a humble nod, as if the crown had just landed square on her head. Evander blinked once, then looked over at me and back at Mom. "That's not what the hospital record shows," he said. "Tobin handled it. He signed as the responsible party and authorized the transfer within the hour, personally." Everything in the room stopped. I mean, stopped. Not even the ceiling fan dared to make noise. Somewhere near the back, someone's ice clinked in their glass. That was it. Bryn froze mid-smile. Her face stretched tight like it was caught between two expressions and didn't know which one to settle on. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I already had my phone out. I pulled up the email confirmation from Kara Sloan and held it up for anyone close enough to read. My name, my account, time-stamped, documented. A few people edged in closer. One of my cousins whispered, "Wait, he paid that?" Another muttered, "But Bryn said..." And just like that, the performance started slipping at the edges. I braced myself for a storm of apologies, or at least a few sheepish glances. What I got was rage. Mom's smile evaporated like steam hitting a burner. She stepped forward, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. "Why would you bring this up now, Tobin? Trying to ruin your father's celebration? This is just jealousy. You always do this." Dad's face twisted like he'd swallowed glass. "Why are you doing this here?" he asked, quieter but worse somehow. "Why now?" I took half a step back. Not because I was afraid, because it hit that old bruise deep in my chest, the part that still wanted him to see me, even now. Bryn's eyes filled up fast, like she was switching gears in real time. Tears welled, lip trembled, then came the venom. "He can't just let people be happy," she said, voice breaking. "He hates when I'm appreciated. It's like he needs to ruin every good moment." Then she leaned toward Dane, lowered her voice, and hissed something I couldn't make out. I didn't catch it in the moment, but later I saw it in a video someone posted. "Hit him. Shut him up." Dane stepped in, no hesitation. Arm cocked back like we were two guys in a bar parking lot. I saw it coming just fast enough to turn. His fist grazed my shoulder instead of smashing my face. People screamed. One of the kids started crying. Mom was yelling now, saying I caused this. Bryn screamed that I was dangerous and unstable. I watched my dad rise to his feet, shaking, and jab a finger toward the door. "Leave," he said. "Get out, Tobin." Evander stepped between us, voice firm. "He didn't start this. Dane needs to back down." Mom turned on him, snarling. "You don't know what's really happening here." "I think I do," he said. I didn't wait. I walked. Straight out the door, down the driveway, into my car. I didn't say goodbye, didn't slam anything. I just drove. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I wasn't. I hit the highway back to Atlanta that night and drove in silence for most of it. My phone buzzed a few times, group chat notifications, missed calls from my mom, a voicemail I didn't listen to. I didn't want to hear their version. I already knew how they'd spin it. By Monday, I was back at my desk, staring at spreadsheets that usually calmed me. But I couldn't lock in. I started snapping at junior staff for tiny errors. I drank more coffee than water. My sleep turned into 3-hour windows of sweating and replaying that moment, Dad pointing to the door like I was the threat. Then the rumors started. A second cousin messaged out of nowhere saying, "Hey, just checking in. I heard you've been struggling?" Another aunt called my outburst worrying. I hadn't said more than 5 words to her in a year. I knew exactly where it was coming from. Bryn. She didn't just want my silence. She wanted the fallout pinned on me. Then came the hit at work. My director called me into compliance. Someone had filed a report accusing me of manipulating hospital billing systems for personal advantage. The phrasing was careful, vague enough to raise eyebrows, specific enough to stick if no one checked. They asked for account audits, time logs, even hospital communication history. I gave them everything. I knew it was baseless. I also knew how slow the wheels turn when legal's involved. That was the trick. She wasn't trying to win anything. She was trying to bury me in suspicion. It didn't work. After 2 weeks of chaos, the report was dismissed. No merit. But something in me shifted. The fact that she went that far told me everything I needed to know. I stopped checking the family chat. I blocked her number. Then I blocked Mom's. Dane sent one text that said, "Watch yourself, man." I blocked that too before I even finished reading it. A month later, I took a job offer from a pharmaceutical manufacturer in Denver. High level, clean operations, solid leadership, and more importantly, far from Georgia. I didn't announce it. I didn't post a goodbye or make some dramatic exit. I just left. Moved into a quiet apartment near City Park. New phone number, new morning routine. I joined a gym, kept my head down, and started sleeping again. Real sleep, the kind where you don't wake up angry. Mom sent long messages. Bryn wrote this fake sweet guilt trap about how could you leave Dad like that? They went straight to archive. If it wasn't from Aunt Janelle, I didn't read it. The silence wasn't peace, but it was clean. I didn't scream or retaliate. I just stopped giving them what they counted on most, my access. And for people like that, losing control feels a whole lot like punishment. I was sitting at my kitchen counter, eating oatmeal and checking inventory reports when the fraud alert hit my phone. The banner said, "Suspicious activity, $18,250, Georgia hospital system." At first I chuckled, thought it was a phishing text or someone else's mistake. Then I saw the merchant code, and my stomach flipped. It was the same hospital my dad had his surgery at, the same billing department that once took my money like it was their lifeline. I hit the bank line immediately and got a human on the phone. "Decline the charge," I said. "Lock the merchant, flag the account, and escalate the audit." Next call was to Mindy Lark, ER admin, sharp as ever, and one of the few people left from my old days in Atlanta who still took my calls. "Tell me what happened," I asked. She sighed like she already knew what I was calling about. "Your mom came in last night, brought Bryn and some guy in a sling. He broke his leg, nasty fracture, no insurance, no prep." "Dane," I said flatly. "Yeah, that tracks." I didn't even need the rest, but she gave it to me anyway. "They kept saying the family account was already on file," she said. "Your mom told the front desk to just run it like last time." I felt my jaw lock. "They used my name?" "They didn't need to," she said. "They insisted the system had it saved. One of our newer clerks pulled the profile and clicked into your payer tab by accident. Didn't process anything, but the access got logged. Compliance already flagged it." That was what mattered. Not the stunt. They'd tried worse. The audit trail. The timestamps. That wasn't drama. That was a breach. "How do you know it was them?" I asked. Mindy gave a tired laugh. "Because your mom introduced herself to half the waiting room, loudly, told 2 nurses about the daughter who saved her husband's life. You can guess who that was." I didn't scream, call, or send threats. I went quiet. Filed a written dispute with my bank. Requested the hospital's full billing record, including access logs, through official channels. Locked down every payment method linked to the old account and had new credentials issued. The next morning, I got an email from Kara Sloan. Same cold professionalism, just a new fiscal year. "The charge attempt was declined," she wrote. "We have documented the access incident internally and placed a restriction on the patient file. No third-party payment information will be reused or referenced without direct written consent." That should have been the end. But I knew better. Mom didn't process rejection like other people. To her, being told no was an attack on her authority. And when she felt cornered, she didn't reflect. She retaliated. I shut my laptop, picked up my phone, and blocked every Georgia area code I didn't recognize. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew it was coming. 2 weeks after I blocked that hospital charge, a process server knocked on my door in Denver with a thick envelope and a polite tone. I didn't need to open it to know. That kind of weight always has a signature. The lawsuit accused me of psychological harassment and financial coercion, said I'd abandoned my family during a medical emergency and used my economic advantage to cause them emotional harm. It read like a bad joke until I remembered courts don't care how stupid something sounds if it's wrapped in the right paperwork. I hired Elliot Haynes out of Boulder, quiet, sharp, knew how to dismantle a tantrum dressed up as a legal strategy. He took one look at the claims and said, "They're phishing. but we don't let them think they're swimming. We started gathering bank records, call logs, email chains, the flagged access reports from the hospital system, all time-stamped, all clean. Then Elliot said, "There's a psych evaluation attached." My stomach turned. "She's claiming you have narcissistic tendencies and poor emotional regulation," he added. "Diagnosis isn't real. The provider listed isn't licensed in Colorado or Georgia." He printed the letter. The credentials looked official until you looked closer. The woman who signed it was tied to a trauma empowerment retreat Bryn had co-hosted 3 years earlier, a yoga friend with a printer. In court, Judge Maren Holt didn't waste time. She called for order before the second paragraph of Bryn's opening statement. Mom tried to launch into her act, trembling voice, handkerchief, references to a broken home, but the judge stopped her flat. "This is civil court, not theater. We're here for facts." Elliot stood and laid it out clean. My client declined a charge he never authorized. He filed a fraud report, as anyone would. There was no prior consent for repeat billing. There was no abuse. There was a breach. Bryn tried to counter, said I'd left them stranded, that I had a pattern of cruelty. She waved at the diagnosis. Elliot handed over documentation proving the provider had 0 clinical standing. Dane couldn't stay quiet. When the judge asked him a direct question about the charge attempt, he threw his hands up and barked, "He thinks he's better than us. He's always been like that." Judge Holt looked unimpressed. "Is that a legal defense, Mr. Rourke?" He snapped. "I'm saying he deserved to get hit." That was our window. Elliot introduced the party video, shot by a cousin, posted for 5 minutes, saved by Janelle. In it, Bryn clearly whispered, "Hit him, shut him up," and Dane's swing connected with my shoulder. The judge watched the whole clip in silence. Then she looked at my mother, Bryn, and Dane, and said, "You brought this action. You opened this door." She dismissed the suit and sanctioned them for wasting court resources and submitting false documentation. It wasn't a huge fine, but it was public. It was permanent. Outside the courthouse, I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. I just shook Elliot's hand, got in my car, and felt the weight ease off my shoulders for the first time in a long while. My mother stood like a statue outside the courtroom, arms folded, eyes locked on something behind me that didn't exist. She didn't say a word, but the silence screamed betrayal. Bryn stood closer, jaw tight, fury painted across her face, not heartbreak, just control slipping out of her fingers. Aunt Janelle lingered near the wall, holding her purse like a shield. She didn't approach. She didn't need to. She just gave me a single nod, like someone who'd seen too much to pretend anymore. Dane kept muttering like he wanted to start something, chest puffed, stepping once in my direction. Security shifted. He stopped. That was always the game with him. Make noise, not moves. Elliot handed me a manila envelope. "You did the right thing by staying clean," he said. "Judges don't care about who yells loudest. They care who shows up with facts." I nodded once, slid the envelope under my arm, and stepped past the 3 of them without breaking stride. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just said it, flat and clear. "You might always be my relatives, but you'll never be my family again." Then I left Georgia behind for good. Back in Denver, the quiet felt earned. I went back to my job, back to my apartment, back to a life where no one threw knives, then cried about the blood. A few weeks passed. Then I got a call. It was Janelle. Her voice was lower than usual, like something heavy sat in her throat. "Tobin, can I have your mailing address? I found something. I think it was meant for you." 3 days later, a plain white envelope landed in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a short, crooked letter. The pen pressure was uneven. The date said it had been written nearly a year after the surgery. "I should have told you this sooner," it read. "I was proud of you long before that hospital bill. I just let your mother's voice get louder than my own. I was weak, and you paid for my weakness." He signed it, Dad. Tucked in with the letter was a note from Janelle. "I found this in the back of a drawer when Marla asked me to help organize the kitchen. I don't think she ever planned to give it to you." I sat at the table with the letter in my hands for a long time, not crying, not angry, just holding the proof that some part of him had still been mine, buried under her, but still there. I didn't call anyone. I didn't reopen contact. I framed the letter, set it on my shelf, and left the rest in the past. Let them tell whatever stories help them sleep. I've got my own now, and it's real. If you've got the hype feature, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people. Then please subscribe and hit like. It's one click and it matters a lot. And drop a comment below. Now tell me, if you've ever had family rewrite history and treat your sacrifice like it was theirs, would you cut them off for good, or would you pay the price again just to keep the peace?